Today on the Terrible Warriors, we return to our summer series to Meet the Makers. In 2018 at BreakoutCon, we got to meet Misha Bushyager for the very first time, and during that conversation, we talked about Nightingales and her new game Orun that at the time was just being playtested, and, well, now it has become a successful Kickstarter story, and when we met up with her in the hallways, that's exactly where we began our conversation.
It was surprisingly well. I was not expecting quite that kind of levels. It was like, it actually, we funded on the first day, actually within a few hours, so all right, I've got to stop, hitting refresh, so I'm going to go to a movie. And, halfway through my movie, which fortunately I was the only one in the theater, my phone starts, lighting up. It's like, oh, you're funded. Oh, crap.
You did it.
What do I do now?
Stretch goals.
Yeah, fortunately we had some planned already, so but it was like,
Did you expect it to be funded that quickly?
No, we're close. We were figuring, if it's in the first 2 weeks, we'll be happy.
I had the feeling, as an outsider, layperson as I am, that this is going to be funded.
Yeah.
But in the first day, as fast as it was,
I did not
click.
expect it 2 hours. It was like, what the hell? It was amazing. It was cool. It was everything I wanted, and cool.
So since that launch now, and now you've had the chance to start really playtesting it, and you've got it here at Breakout, and you're running through a few sessions that I know of. How has the game changed from concept to testing now? I'm just really curious to know about the process of what goes on now that it's actually happening. Is there much that you found that this worked really well, or this maybe we could change that around?
There's been a few things that we've tweaked, mostly in mechanics kind of thing, but for the most part the concept behind it has remained pretty true to what we had originally, which is kind of hopeful. Group of people working together, trying to make things better, trying to be the good guys, as opposed to we're going to be nebulous people. Yeah, no, you're the good guys. You're trying to make things better. You're trying to improve things.
For the listener and I know who you are, you don't want to go through the backlog to last year's interviews, and we have no idea what the heck we're talking about right now. That concept of Orun, is it Orun or Arun?
There's debate. I pronounce it Orun. I think the other way is commonly pronounced as Orun. We have to get back with our person who is our...
you need to get your style guide.
Yeah,
right
it's and we're putting that together, and also checking with somebody who's a fluent speaker in Yoruba.
Yeah.
To say, all right, are we using these words in the proper context, or are we pulling a tanto, which we were trying to avoid?
As someone who's half of his family can speak Irish, and I butcher those words, they don't make any sense. What is the concept of Orun? And
so Orun
means, it's more than just a space opera.
Yeah, it means Orun means home. So these are your home worlds that you're trying to improve, and so the core conceit is centuries ago, enlightened beings came and helped the worlds, both by giving them technology and improving their day-to-day lives, but also by giving them the secret of ascending to a higher plane of existence. Then they spaced out, because all right, you guys good? We're cool? All right, we're going to peace out. We're going to do this somewhere else, and you do your thing. And then some wars happened, and some of that knowledge was lost. And so some of the people who had already previously ascended came back to try to help the worlds rediscover that secret. And rebuild from the wars.
Some worlds are better off than others now.
Yeah, some are better off than others. Some are, still there's we were playing with worlds this weekend. One of them is one that has these gravity pulses, so all the space debris every now and again just gets sucked in. So now it's a scavenger planet, because nobody really wants to live there, because randomly stuff falls out of the sky. But there's also cool stuff there that you can go and do.
Work for Jeff Goldblum in Ragnarok.
Exactly, right? But then also some of the planets that the Orisha created and gave to them are a high level of tech. The worlds overall have a fairly high level of tech.
Yeah, these Star Trek utopias with big cities of glass and high
or
tech
cities of crystal underwater, because We have like playable aquatic species and playable insectoid species.
It really sounded like there was a lot of cross-section between science fiction tropes where you have those like very like industrial like mining worlds that you would see in something like Alien versus those like really high-tech post was it scarcity world that you would have in Star Trek, and then all that like in between where you have like, I mean, Star Wars has that too, where you have like the inner worlds and the outer core. But this is all based too about like the politics about these ascendant beings that came before, and there's all that other like, you know, why don't you share this knowledge? And the knowledge has been lost. And other people that are
we would share it if we had it.
We know how the sausage gets made, but we're just going to hold on to it and use it for our own purposes now. And like, there's a lot of story to chew on.
Yeah. And it's about how your individual actions can have bigger effects on everything else. So, like, you might make the decision to, we're going to let that guy go. And, he takes your example and becomes somebody great going forward.
So are there mechanics then in the game to track that kind of ripple effect?
For larger campaign styles, that's part of, like, the GMing kind of advice. It's like, all right, pick something small that the characters did, and it's like, all right, reincorporate those kind of beats into the larger campaigns. So
write down those bullet points and keep them in mind so they come around. Yes. I think of games like The Witcher, but you make a decision, and by the time you find out the answer to what happened to that decision, it's far too late for you to go back on it. From Orun and Nightingale and all the games you've been working on to GameWorks, which is all about getting opportunities and territory for
you're
people to come
New
in.
Agenda Publishing.
Blacko
GameWorks is like my personal imprint. That if you're trying to like hire me for freelance stuff, you go to Blacko GameWorks.
You wear a lot of hats.
Yeah, I do. I wear so many hats. New Agenda Publishing is the ones. It's me, Jerry Grayson, Loyola Santa. We're the ones who are doing Orun. So we're doing the writing and the hiring.
Right.
We were really intentional in our hiring processes and our we were trying to make sure that we were getting voices that hadn't been heard before. So we got a lot of new writers, a lot of newer artists. We tried to make sure that it wasn't just, we weren't just hiring our friends and just random white guys that we knew. We were trying to make sure, okay, are we hiring people of color? Are we hiring trans people? Are we hiring queer people? Are we hiring are we
not just for the people who have a portfolio in tabletop, because those tend to be a lot of white people who have a portfolio, but also artists in other fields that would be interested in drawing for tabletop.
I would love to draw something, but I don't know where to get started. So we had a couple of calls for hey, just send us like a 200-word sample, just so we know what you're talking about. We ended up hiring 11 writers and I think 7 or 8 artists that have been working with us. And the artwork that they've been coming back with is just phenomenal. It's like, hey, make us an aquatic species. Don't make it a mermaid. Don't make it like too humanoid. And they came back with this.
Don't make it a Gungan.
Yeah, well, yeah. Please, God, don't make it a Gungan. So, like, let's see if I got. So some of the artwork that we got back. Like, this is our aquatic species.
Dang.
So you've got tentacles and ice
flowery
and
jellyfish thing. It's really with the little like beholder eyes on the end of the tentacles.
And then this is our Oyans,
when the Fire Nation attacked.
Pretty much kind of.
I see this. It's very much like a Dune style, like regal royalty with a sash and this golden flame.
And then this is our Kobani species.
All right,
they're kind of blue. They've got like cilia all over their bodies.
Yeah,
to kind of let them
like
sense
porcupine
things
spines
a little.
and things.
And then we've got our Photoran, which are this kind of weird caterpillar-y insectoid.
Yeah, when you just don't have enough eyes.
Yeah, when you need a few more eyes.
How many limbs can I have? And you can just say yes.
You're a bug. How many do you want? And then we've got like energy beings that are like inside containment suits. They don't have to stay inside the containment suits, but they can be whatever color and shape. They're kind of amorphous outside of them, but the containment suits let them like lift stuff. And so those are the ones that are in the quick start, which is currently still available. If you just want to go to drive through, it's pay what you want. So you can see a preview of some of the art that we've been working on.
Check the show notes. The link is in there.
And then we've got Arandice, which are kind of like animated funerary automatons. So they're when an Oyen dies, if they have the resources, they can have their soul like transferred into this their consciousness transferred into this automaton, and they can kind of live forever-ish. But there's enough of them that they've pretty much become their own species, really, and it's kind of cool. And then we've got like more of a quadrupedal kind of bovine, kind of deer-like kind of species that does things with telekinesis because you don't have hands if you're quadrupedal. But so it's telling the artist, like, look, we don't want just humans that look a little different than other humans.
We don't need humanoids.
Yes, we need just, make us something weird, and they've delivered it so well.
Not of this world.
Yeah, make an alien species, please.
Very cool. What else has been going on in the last year? I'm sure there's a lot of stuff I don't know about. I don't pay attention to the news. How has it been since the 12 months that we last talked at Breakout? Because I know back then it was still like, oh yeah, I can't tell you a whole much, but Rune's going to be coming out. We're going to be kickstarting it soon, and you were doing the Nightingale LARP there last year, and we got really talking about that, and found out that you really like Worldwide Wrestling, the role-playing game, and the games that you're playing with your kids. How has the 2018-19 season been?
So 2019 has started off a little rocky. I was appointed to the IGDN board, and then, some of the things in the larger RPG world happened, and it's like, there's a fire, okay, I gotta put that one out. Oh, there's another fire, we gotta put that one out.
It's like being on that junk world you were
talking
about,
a little
where
bit.
everything
It's like,
just keeps being pulled down to the ground.
Get sucked in, and so I think we're back to like a decently even keel, and we've got, it's like, we gotta do some documentation, we gotta shore up a few walls here and there, so we'll get some things done.
Check the foundation.
Yeah, it's like, the foundation's right, we gotta
the bones in this building are good.
Maybe we find a bigger building or a different building, we'll see. But yeah, it's starting to improve there again, and then I know that was a loaded question. Well, personally, life's been good. I actually quit my day job.
Congratulations.
I know, it's fun. So I have time to spend more with my kids and during the day, and they can do more activities and stuff. But then that also gives me an opportunity during the day to do more writing and to do more sensitivity reading for other people. And that's what I do under Black Girl Game Works, that imprint, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Are you still playing that baking game that you mentioned last year with your kids, the March break?
Yes, that will be coming up in May. We pretty much do it every year at Camp Nerdly, which is always in May. And yeah, they have a blast. It's like, all right, we get to dress up like superheroes and bake stuff, because why not? I found out that there are actually apparently rules for this game that I did not know existed. I only knew of the title, which is like Superhero Bakery.
And you just ran with the title.
No, it's like, why would we do this? It's like, there's actually rules. I didn't know.
To the creator of this game, we are so sorry.
And that's the funny thing. And so the creator of the game is Jason Morningstar, who I've known at Camp Nerdly since we started running this game, and he's never said anything about it. So
it's one of those, like,
he approves.
When someone just starts running with it, and you're like, well,
it's like,
I don't want to ruin their fun.
Yeah, they're having fun with it. But just go. And it's not like we're selling it or anything,
So what's next with Orun and with the games you're working on? What Misha Bushyager going to do now for the next time you and I talk?
So we're finishing up Orun. We did like the first pass, found a few things that we're missing, and we need to tweak, and like, all right, we need to clarify this a little. So we're doing that, and hopefully that means we'll have it out next month. We'll get it shipped to the printer. Nightingales is kind of on hiatus because Mo, who's one of my co-designers on it, is doing Rosenstrasse, which is amazing and is available. I think is still. You have today. Well, okay. By the time you hear this, you will not have time to pack the Kickstarter, but it might be available. Rosenstrasse is a really cool game. In World War II, in Nazi-occupied Germany, there were Aryan women who were married to Jewish men, and one day the government said they were going to take the men, and the Jewish women, or the Aryan women, said, no, you're not. And so there was this giant protest. And so Mo and Jessica Hammer, who is a wonderful game scholar in her own right, they created Rosenstrasse. It's like a 4-hour LARP for 4 people. It's incredibly thoughtfully researched and very personal to both of them, and it's just an amazing story.
I find that a lot with a lot of the games that get showcased here at Breakout. They have this personal story that the writers are, like there are maybe there are easier ways to tell these stories, but it's not always about telling the easy story. And I love meeting like the games that are for fun and comedy, and then the other ones are like,
no, we're here to make you think.
Working through this thing here from history that happened and to these people, and they become these empathy engines. For the people listening in on this conversation now who aren't here at Breakout, who have never heard of these games, do you have any advice? I know tomorrow you're doing a number of panels on how far is too far, and being an ally. Do you have any advice for the who are interested in like bringing a Rune to their table to new players who've never heard of it, or to the other games that we'll be talking about here at Breakout, for them to to consider maybe try these other stories from these other writers?
So my friend Mendez wrote a really thoughtfully created article that how to play a race that is not your own in a game. So that's a good place to start. It's if you go to, I think it's jamesmendezhodas.com, there will be a link to his blog and with the article. I'll get you a link later. That's it's things like, if you're going to play a race that is not your own, maybe do a little research on it. But also, it's a person, not a caricature. And so if you start from that, it's like, all right, why would this person do this? Okay, well, if you're just going to come up with a stereotypical answer, that's not a good answer. But if you come up with a thoughtful answer, it's like, oh, well, this person had this kind of trauma happen to them, or this person comes from this culture which emphasizes these sorts of things, and just take the tropes that exist and the stereotypes that exist, and either investigate why they're stereotypes or why they're tropes, and then find some way of subverting them. That's the easiest way to start. With Orun specifically, we tried to make sure that we specifically did not put humans into the game just for that reason, so that you had to create your own empathetic experience. You had to identify with somebody who is not like you, because none of them are like you. So it's kind of an empathy engine in and of itself that lets you kind of do the fantasy in your head thing. And then with some of my other projects, it's like a lot of them are telling stories that people don't hear a lot of. And with my sensitivity reading, it's like...
I'd never heard of the story that you just mentioned from World War II. I didn't know that was even a dynamic that happened.
Yeah, so Jess Hammer is her grandparents were Holocaust survivors. So it was a very personal story for her to like find these bits and pieces out of history to put them forward, because so many people haven't heard some of these stories. So if there's something in your background or something in somebody else's background, try and tease that out. What about that is interesting? What about that is something that you can relate to? And it might be, something small, like, oh, well, I can empathize with, I love my husband. How would I feel if my husband were going to be taken away and I was not going to? It's like, let's start there. All right, now we've got some common ground. There's some fruitful value there that we can work with. I was looking at, I actually just picked up a board game. It's called Neverland Rescue, and I picked it up because you're playing Peter Pan and Lost Boys versus Hook and his crew, but like the Wendy and Michael and John characters, the art is black.
Oh,
just little things like that. It's like and Tinkerbell is blue, but she's got a fro. I'm like, gimme. So just little things like representation. It's little things like that like, hey, I can show this to my kid. It's like,
so everyone's setting your game in Britain.
Yeah.
Guess
Hello.
what?
Idris Elba is Cockney, okay? He is from Cockney. Idris Elba is what somebody from Cockney looks like or can look like. Yeah. So you can't tell me that, no, they're British, so they must be this old pasty white guy. No, look, I love Tom Hiddleston, don't get me wrong, but I love Idris Elba too, and they both exist in the same place. There's no reason you can't have both.
Exactly.
So, This is not hard, people.
It becomes this point where you're just like, just flailing hand gestures generally. Misha, thank you so much for spending time with me here. Where can we find you as we continue to follow you around?
So 90% of my online is Twitter at BGGameworks. That's where most of my loud and noisy and occasionally ranty thoughts are. And then my website, blackgirlgameworks.com or newagendapublishing.com. So.
Excellent. All right. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
I will.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again to Misha Bushyager for spending time with us. You can find her on Twitter at BGGameworks, as well as newagendapublishing.com, where you can find out all of the projects that she is involved in. We mentioned a couple things throughout this interview, including Rosenstrauss and an article by James Mendez Hodes, May I Play a Character from Another Race? Those are linked in the show notes. By all means, click through along with the Orun Quick Start. That's also on there. Normally, Terrible Warriors has new episodes out every week and new campaigns out every month. We're taking a break from that throughout the summer and instead releasing interviews that we've recorded with game makers and community leaders throughout the year. We're about to head off to Gen Con at the end of the month, where I, Justin, am going to be working at the Magpie Games booth, and I'm also going to have an opportunity to interview people at Modifius, Free League Games, and anyone else I bump into. So expect to be hearing those interviews coming out very soon. Follow us on Twitter at Dice Warriors, where you can learn all about the show and where it's going to be going, and it will be returning with a new season of actual play RPGs in the fall, probably the winter. If you really are missing our actual play experience and you want to be a part of some more stuff, well, every other Saturday on Twitch, we are playing through a game of Shadowrun with the Cambridge Chronicles, so we will see you there Saturday at 9 when, you can join in on that. Patreon supporters get access to the archive of those shows available forever for them, as well as Patreon supporters are still part of monthly private games that we are running for them. This month we are playing the brand new Sea of Thieves RPG. So if you'd like to try that with us, there's still room to sign up at patreon.com/Terrible Warriors. The Terrible Warriors are not going anywhere, and on the next episode, we will be chatting with James Mendez Hodes, the author of that very article that Misha was mentioning. It's a really interesting conversation, and I cannot wait to share it with you. And until we meet again in 2 weeks' time with that interview, thank you for listening, thank you for supporting, thank you for being a terrible warrior.